Hello, my name is Daniel Mahon, and I will be talking to you today about our relationship with bees and if that is sustainable, and that is as part of assessment for PSY3HAR. Okay, let's get started. Does the future of mankind depend on our relationship with bees? Float like a butterfly, sting like a bee, said Cassius Clay, alluding to the association many of us make with bees or the potential pain of being stung. Bees, hornets, wasps, all of them from the order Hymenoptera, black and yellow with stingers, all the same, right? Well, no, it is actually thought that bees evolved from wasps, and whilst wasps and hornets are predatory, bees are the vegan cousin of the family, feeding on nectar and collecting pollen. In fact, they have evolved to become the most efficient pollinators on the planet. Where insect pollinated flowering plants grow, one of the 20,000 species of bees will grow close by. Co-evolution between plants and bees has resulted in highly specialized lock and key attributes that maximize the distribution of pollen, which is then dispersed to fertilize other flowers, which in turn grow into fruit and nuts. An example of this co-evolution is the bumblebee, who, when collecting pollen from the tomato plant, enters the flower and physically vibrates it at a frequency equivalent to the musical note C, which releases large amounts of pollen onto the bee. Honeybees cannot pollinate tomatoes or other buzz-pollinated fruit, including kiwi fruit, blueberries, and eggplants. 90% of bee species live solitary lives, making nests on the ground and not producing honey or beeswax. But the specialized attributes that native bees possess make them far more efficient at pollinating native fauna. A few hundred specialized Osmia cornuta apple pollinating bees can pollinate a hectare of apple orchard. Human interactions with bees are reducing bee populations worldwide, with estimates that 1/4 of native species have been eliminated. This is through use of pesticides, especially more recently, the neonicotinoid pesticides. Global warming, which is causing fauna to flower out of season when the bees are not available, causing increased competition between pollinators for reduced sources. Monoculture farming, which is more reliant on chemicals and eliminates other sources of nectar through a flowerless landscape, so that once the crop is harvested, there is no more food for the bees. And disease, which can be spread in part through honeybees populations introduced to ecosystems by humans. The reduction in native pollinators is causing a necessary relationship between humans and bees, especially in areas of monoculture farming such as China and the United States. In these areas, honeybees are farmed and millions of beehives are driven around on flatbed trucks to follow the blossom harvest. America is almost entirely reliant on these bees to pollinate huge apple orchards and almond plantations as the native fauna has been eliminated. Problematically, it takes tens of thousands of honeybees to pollinate a hectare of apples, a job which could be done by a few hundred Osmia cornuta native apple bee specialists. Honeybees live in a hive, and worker bees collect pollen and nectar to feed themselves. The queen bee, the male drones that live in the hive also. They need pollen and nectar to make the jelly necessary to grow larvae from eggs. The seasonal collection of nectar and pollen is so relentless that honeybees can die in just 6 weeks from exhaustion, whereas in other months they can live all year round, or live year round. The industrial scale of honeybee hive enterprise outcompetes specialist native fauna who usually work alone. Humans have learned to manipulate honeybees, the most studied bee species. Bees heavily utilize pheromones to control hives. Humans can split a hive in two and introduce hormones as a pheromone that will trigger some female workers to become fertile and form a new queen. Queens can lay 250,000 eggs a year in the right conditions, so the new hive can grow quickly. This makes a honeybee farm This makes honeybees a form of domesticated animal. Their fertilization process can be manipulated to increase numbers, and they can be provided with specially built beehives to localize their movements. They also produce a product, honey, that can be sold. They can be transported to farms lacking pollinators and their services sold. However, this use of honeybees is part of the problem with dwindling native bee numbers. The honeybees can strip bare whole crops of their blossoming nectars before being wished to the next crop. This can outcompete native fauna, causing numbers to drop. Disease and parasites can also be introduced by honeybees that are more likely to encounter and then spread disease through their human-associated travels. This monoculturization of pollinating bees by humans can reduce biodiversity and increase our reliance on honeybees. Potentially 1/3 of our food sources already rely on bees. It has been speculated that extinction of bees could trigger the extinction of humans. As human populations grow, so does demand for pollinating flower foods. This requires more land for farming, destroying native animals, or more intense farming methods, such as monoculture farming that destroys native animals. Humans have a long documented relationship with beekeeping, with the ancient Greeks and ancient Egyptians examples of early beekeepers. Nature has a relationship going back 50 million years, and the co-evolution of bees and plants has formed countless mutualistic relationships. Maybe humans would be better to learn to utilize these relationships and encourage crop-specific bees and bee-friendly farming methods. We can all do our part by growing native flowers in our backyard and windowsills. Encourage bees to enter your environment and pollinate your plants. Who knows, your life may depend on it.